idea for Valentine's Day that I want to share with you. So, in case you forgot, which some of us here in the office forgot, Valentine's Day is this Thursday. So, it's on a weeknight. You're probably going to work all day. You don't want to spend 2 hours on your Valentine's dinner, so I have a really fast recipe that's easier than you might think, but it feels very special for your beloved. So, it's a lobster dinner. I'm going to make the main course and the dessert, and it all comes together, like I said, quick enough for a busy weeknight. So the lobster is miso-glazed lobster tails with bok choy. Sorry, sesame bok choy. So let me get the bok choy on the pan and get that started, and then I'll kind of move on and show you what to do with the lobster and just kind of ease any fears that you might have about lobster tails. Okay, so I have a tiny bit of salt. This is a recipe for 2 people, so we don't need much salt, just a tiny bit here with some toasted sesame oil. And I'm just going to kind of stir that around. The salt's not going to dissolve. That's fine, that's fine. I have 2 heads of baby bok choy here. The ends look pretty good, but I'm just going to kind of trim a little bit and then cut each one in half lengthwise. The baby bok choy just looks so pretty on the plate. It's just such a nice addition and goes very well with these flavors here. You know, we have a little bit of some Asian flavors going on with the toasted sesame oil and the miso. So I'm just going to take that oil and just sort of brush it over the bok choy. I'm not going to use all the oil that I have here, all of this oil mixture, because I need to reserve a little bit of it for some shiitake mushrooms. Actually, I need to place these cut side up onto a baking sheet. I've lined it with foil just for easy cleanup. It's a weeknight. I need to make this as easy as possible. I'm speaking for myself, but I have a feeling I might be speaking for some of you guys too. Okay, so I'm just kind of brushing over the leaves. It's okay if you don't have to belabor the process there. Okay, let me just wipe my hands a little bit. And then I have some shiitake mushrooms. I have a cup here. And I'm just going to put them in the bowl that has the sesame oil and salt. It's a little tight. I should have used a larger bowl, but that's okay. And I'm just going to kind of move everything around, smush the mushrooms down in there so that they pick up the oil. Mushrooms are sponges. They're going to pick up every bit of oil that's in there. Now the flavor of shiitakes I love. They're really rich, almost kind of smoky in a way. They're super savory, so I highly recommend that you get the shiitake, but any type of mushroom will work. Okay, and I'm just going to sprinkle those around, and those are going to go into the oven. We'll probably have to shortcut the process a little bit, but I have my oven on very high. It's on 450 degrees. It will stay on that for the lobster part of the meal as well as for the dessert. Okay, so this goes in for 8 minutes. We're probably not going to go 8 minutes, but we'll pretend. Okay, so while that's in the oven, I'm going to bring over the lobster. So here's the fun part. So I have 2 lobster tails here. Don't be afraid of the lobster. You can find it in so many places. I have actually even seen them in the freezer case at Aldi before. So if you buy them frozen, that's a great value and a great bargain. Just make sure that you thaw them completely overnight in the fridge. I'm using gloves for a couple of reasons, which I'll tell you in a second. But I've seen lobster tails I got these at Whole Foods. They were actually on sale for $7.99 each. It's about comparable to maybe, a mid-grade steak. So this is a meal that's doable for several reasons. So I'm wearing gloves so that I don't have to stop and wash my hands at the sink. But also they kind of protect my hands from the shell of the lobster. Is really sharp. So if you don't have gloves, that's fine. You can do this. You just might need to be a little careful. So I'm taking some kitchen shears, and I'm just going to, actually there's a little bit of cartilage here I'm going to snip off. So I'm just going to cut down the center of each lobster tail. I'm going to cut all the way down until I get to that sort of fan-shaped part of the shell down here. I'm not going to cut through that, but I'm going to cut all the way to it. I'm going to flip the lobster tail over, and with my thumbs I'm going to crack these little ribs, for lack of a better word, on the other side. It's going to help the shell be a little more flexible and help you get the meat out, as well as helping the shell sort of lie flat as you're baking. Okay, yeah, I see this in here. I didn't have this on some of the other ones. So you know when you peel and devein shrimp, there's oftentimes an intestinal vein in there. This guy's got one. I'm going to pull it out. But here's what you do. So I've sort of loosened the lobster meat as best I can. I'm going to pull it out of the shell. I'm going to keep it still attached down here at this end by the fan-shaped part of the tail. I'm going to coax the meat out, pull out that vein. We don't want that on our lobster. Or hey, if you do, that's fine, go for it. It does look a little unsightly though. Okay, and so I'm just pulling the meat out. It might be a little hard to see. And then I'm going to rest the meat. So you see when I cut into the meat with the scissors, it sort of butterflied the meat there. I'm going to rest it over the shell. That's sort of the nice little presentation you see in all the ads. That's how the lobster cooks. It looks really pretty. And the shell adds flavor. You can actually save the shell after you bake these, put it in the freezer, and hang on to it to make stock from it later down the line. You can add some shrimp shells to them, just keep collecting in your bag in the freezer. Oh my goodness, sorry. And then when you have what you think is enough, just do it like you would like a poultry stock. Start with your onion, celery, carrot, maybe some parsley. Oh, sorry, I forgot to flip it over. Crack the little ribs. Okay, this only takes 10 minutes in the oven at 450 degrees. You can also broil them if you'd like, but since I'm cooking the bok choy and the mushrooms at 450, I'm just keeping the oven at 450. If you do broil them, they take no time. I think maybe 5 or 6 minutes for lobster tails this size. You're typically going to find 4 to 5 ounce lobster tails. These are right at 4 ounces. Okay, so I just pulled the meat there. Okay, so I have 2 little guys sitting on top of their shells. Okay. Now, I'm going to keep my gloves on, just for convenience, and I'm going to combine. I have a little bit of melted butter because butter goes great with lobster. We only have 2 lobster tails. We don't need a ton of butter. It would all slide off anyway. I have a little bit of white miso paste that's going to add some flavor, and just a tiny touch of brown sugar. So the brown sugar is going to help the lobster, help sort of enhance the sweetness of the lobster. It's not a lot of brown sugar, it's just a little bit. Like I said, just to sort of echo the sweetness of the lobster. I'm not adding salt here because miso's salty. Okay, just gonna mix, 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 and then just try to get it kind of incorporated, and then you have this nice sort of paste, and that's going to go onto the lobster tails.
And a quick question.
Yeah.
Could you use a different kind of miso other than white, or do you really recommend probably the white miso?
I recommend the white miso because it's milder. So if you use, say, a red miso, it's very salty and a very powerful kind of, not just salinity, but that fermented soybean flavor. I think it might overpower the lobster. And if you're going for lobster, you know, you want to enhance and not overpower the flavor of the meat. Okay, so those guys are ready to go onto the baking sheet. So I'm going to pull it out of the oven. I don't think it's been 8 minutes, but we're going to pretend it has been 8 minutes. Let me grab this baking sheet. That's another thing I love. This all comes together. It's a sheet pan dinner. It's just a little maybe more elevated than the sheet pan dinner you might be used to making on a weeknight. So I want to flip my bok choy over now, cut side down, maybe just kind of zhuzh up the mushrooms a little bit. The mushrooms end up getting a little bit crispy in the oven. They're so, so good. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop these lobster tails on. Okay, and then that goes into the oven, 450 degrees for 10 minutes. I am going to set the timer here because I don't want this lobster to go to waste. Now, at that point when it comes out, you might want to take a minute to broil the lobster just to get a little color, some nice browning on top. I actually have a kitchen torch and I used it on the lobster. I'm not going to do the reveal just yet. Gotta wait just a minute. So I will do the reveal in a minute, but I want to move on to the dessert part. So if you're making this meal, you can get the dessert part, you can do a lot of it ahead of time and pop it in the oven when you sit down to eat. It takes about 15 to 18 minutes to cook, so by the time you're done with dinner, you have your nice dessert. So the dessert is roasted pears with honey ginger yogurt. So I have an 8-inch baking dish, 8-inch square baking dish. I have a little bit of melted butter here and some apple cider vinegar. So I like the vinegar here because it's fruity. Lemon juice is just a little too strong. It overpowers the taste of the pears and makes them taste more like lemon than pears. So the apple cider vinegar is a nice match here. So I have 2 pears. These are Danjou pears that I have cut in half and cored. I just wrap them up in wet paper towels. So if you want to do this a little bit ahead of time, you can do that. You might get a little bit of browning, but it's okay because you know what? When they go in the oven, they're going to get brown. So no big deal. Okay, so I'm going to drizzle half of this butter mixture down into the baking dish.
And we have a question.
Okay.
You said you're using Danjou pears here. Would a different kind of pear also work?
A different kind of pear could work. If you're using something like a Bosc pear, though, those are typically very dense and firm. They might take longer to bake. But other pears, I think I say in the recipe, slightly soft. So we don't want them super, super soft because they might just kind of mush out in the oven, but we want them slightly soft. So a Bartlett pear will work just fine, and probably the bake time will be the same. I'm just putting the rest of the butter here over the pears. But just know that Bosc pears might take a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to put these in the 450-degree oven for 15 to 18 minutes. I'm going to test them by sticking a knife into them to see if they're tender. I'm going to put these under the lobster that I have there, make a sauce, then I have the big reveal of everything. Okay, so these go in 15 to 18 minutes. So again, you just pop those pears in the oven when you sit down to enjoy your nice dinner, and they'll be nice and hot when you're done. So the sauce that goes with the pears, you can make this 2 days ahead. It's just some Greek yogurt, a little bit of honey, and then some minced crystallized ginger, which I love. It gives you this sort of nice spicy pop with each bite. This is going to go with those pears. It's a very nice match. If you don't want to make this dessert, that's fine. Just make the lobster dinner, have some red wine and chocolate, and you'll be good. But I love this dessert. I think it's really nice. The ginger sort of pairs well with some of the Asian flavors that we had going on in the main course. And this, I can say from experience, if you have a little bit of leftover roasted pear and some leftover yogurt mixture, it's really good on oatmeal. So that's just a little tidbit there. Okay, it's time for the reveal. Let me grab here this pan. I'm going to plate these things up, and then this baking dish.
And we have a quick question.
Okay.
Kim says she's allergic to yogurt.
Oh,
Is
goodness,
there
okay.
something she can substitute?
Well, I'm wondering if it's dairy. If it's dairy that you're allergic to, you can find coconut yogurt, almond milk yogurt, maybe something like that would work. As long as, you're flavoring it with honey and ginger, and that's going to give it the sweet, sort of spicy flavor that you're after. So I'm not sure if that would work for you. I hope so. Or you could just drizzle the pears with honey and sprinkle on some crystallized ginger and forego the creamy sauce. Okay, so here's my lobster main course. Let me plate that up. The last thing that goes on the plate, I have a little bit of rice. It's a weeknight. We're keeping things easy. This is just a nice purchased, pre-cooked brown basmati rice.
So Anne, sorry, really quick. Kim
Okay.
replied and she says it's not dairy, it's the active yogurt culture.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, let's see. You could use a creme fraiche. Is it cultured? Does it have live cultures? I'm not sure. And then I was thinking sour cream, is it cultured? Yes, I think so. So you can whip up some heavy cream and just be very decadent if you want that creamy element. Okay, so these nice little bok choy halves go on here. These are a little small, so I got a little bit soft, but I love they get the crispy leaves, kind of like when you roast Brussels sprouts, you get those nice crispy leaves. Okay, plate this up. It's cooled off some, so I can use my hands. The mushrooms are all nice and crispy. I love these. I need to bake just like a huge tray full of just these mushrooms because they're so good. Okay, and each person gets their little lobster guy, lobster tail. Very nice. Okay, I'm running out of room here. Okay, and then here's the dessert. So when it first came out of the oven, the pears were glistening. They've now dried off a little bit just because they've been sitting there for a minute. But you see they get nice and caramelized. Actually, let me put down a little bit of the yogurt mixture on the plate. It's gonna kind of help hold everything in place. I'll put a little bit down and spoon a little bit more on top. Look at that, gorgeous. I love keeping a little bit of the stem. I think I have 2 stem pieces, so each person can get a nice stem piece. Look at that, gorgeous. I realize I'm plating it for me. I'm gonna turn it around in a minute so you can see what I see. Okay. And then let me put a little bit more of the yogurt here on top. You have plenty of yogurt mixture. I might have just ruined it. Did I ruin it? Should I not have put any on? Okay, so that's it. Gorgeous. Happy date night. Lobster dinner, complete with dessert. All together, ready in about 35 minutes from start to finish. And that includes like sitting down to eat this and then grabbing your dessert out of the oven. So I hope everybody out there has a wonderful Valentine's Day. You know, if that's your thing, and if not, treat yourself. You know, just make this for yourself because you deserve it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are watching on Facebook, please like and share this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe so you'll get notifications when we go live. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a wonderful Valentine's Day and a great weekend, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye.